What's going on, guys? Just Joe here, heading down to Lake Wylie for the final ABA of the regular season. We got this tournament and then the two-day championship in September. I'm currently leading the points, so this is a pretty big tournament. I have like a 5 or 6 point lead. So if I do good tomorrow, I'll be able to extend that lead. That's basically the goal. But it's really don't come down to Norman, and I still got to catch him tomorrow. You know, it's June and the fishing starts to be really tough, so it's really kind of, I don't know what to expect. It's really don't be dependent on my boater. Could be anything from fishing, you know, a little bit of shad spawn, maybe some brim beds, to offshore fishing. So I really don't know what to expect. You know, there's live scope out there, so it's always a chance I could get drawn with somebody fishing with live scope, and just hard to really prepare for a tournament like this. But in this episode of Coangler Diary, excuse me, I'm just making sure I don't crash, I want to talk about Coangler etiquette. If you're, you know, new to the sport of fishing, or you know, you want to maybe fish bigger tournaments and you want to do the Coangler thing, I want to talk about the do's and the don'ts. I'm as aggressive as it comes, and but there's still a level of respect you have to have. So let's just dive into some tips, some of the most generic, probably the most common questions I've seen. Let's just first start about, you know, what to take as a co-angler. I keep it real simple. I think the largest bag that you should ever take, now some boaters, they don't care if you take a freaking suitcase, but from what I've seen, there are some boaters that are very neat and organized, and you know, they definitely don't want clutter. And so you don't know who you're going to be drawing, so you want to be as organized as possible going to a tournament. My biggest piece of advice as far as bag size is keep it small enough to fit in the back compartment of a typical bass boat. I get it, some bass boats are tiny and you'll never fit most bags in them. But you know, if you're on a 20-foot fiberglass bass boat, the compartments are basically the same size. Have a bag that will fit in there, because sometimes you might draw a boater that wants your bag in there and out of the way, out of sight. And then as far as rods, it's simple, 6. I almost 95% of the time I take 5 bait casters and 1 spinning rod. Any combination of 6. 6 is the magic number. And then, you know, probably the biggest do or don't that you hear about is the where to cast, the back 180. And to be honest with you, I don't like that rule. You know, that's a very generic thing. Let me just, before people jump on me for that, if you go into a pocket or your boater slides in between 2 docks, say he's flipping a jig under docks, but he's fishing the entire dock, the walkway, the inside post, the outside post, the boat lift, and he goes around the dock and is just going in order. Well, that boat's going to slide inside between, say, two docks side by side. So the next dock that he hasn't fished yet will enter that back 180. It is not okay for a co-angler to cast that next dock, even though it's in the back 180. Just like if your boater's focused on the bank and you want to fish a drop shot out off the bank, if you throw a little bit out in front of the boat behind them, there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm pretty much very vocal with my boaters about, you know, if I throw anywhere towards the front, and now I'm never throwing over his line or even throwing anywhere near his bait. But if, you know, if he's fishing the bank and I want to, you know, we're in 8 foot of water and I really feel like the fish are in 9 foot of water, if I throw kind of, you know, out off his back towards the front of the boat, I'm gonna make sure it's okay with him. I'm not bothering him. I'm gonna make sure my line is out of his way for anything he's doing, setting the hook or casting, anything like that. But I don't really abide by the back 180, because the back 180 doesn't cover all your basics. And then as far as fishing behind your boater, depending on what he's doing, if you want to fish docks behind him or bushes or whatever, just don't press him. If you have to throw in front of the boat because he's moving really fast, as long as you're not throwing it on top of him, that's completely fine. Just, you have to understand what he's fishing, and my biggest thing is understanding you never ever throw in front of him, and that could be throwing out the back of the boat. If you're in a pocket and he's fishing, say, bushes. You guys go into a pocket and the bushes are on the left, but there's also bushes to the right on the other side of the little pocket. Obviously he's going to fish his way to the back, turn the boat around, and then fish those pockets, the pockets on the back side on the way out. It is not okay for you to cast over there. Even if they're behind him or in the back of the boat, it don't matter. You have to realize what the boater is fishing and stay behind him, or target something completely different. If he's fishing docks and there's riprap in between the docks, and you want to say, well, maybe I'll throw stuff to the riprap, awesome. And if you have to throw towards the front of the boat to do it, as long as you're not casting over him or pushing him at all with your cast, no problem. And then just be, you know, I always tell my boaters, anytime I even throw anywhere near him, or just basically, I'm a very apologetic guy. I'm gonna make sure that I'm not doing anything to interfere with what he's doing. And if I am, I tell him, hey man, if I do anything wrong, please just let me know. I don't want to interfere with the way you're fishing whatsoever. I have that conversation every time. So that's, you know, the casting thing. That's the biggest etiquette problem. Don't tell other people what you did that day. You know, that boater works really hard to figure out how to fish and learn, and if he has something to himself, he don't need you blabbing it out after the tournament. You know, obviously you have to know what's common knowledge and what's not, but if you get drawn with somebody that's doing something a little bit secret, hey, you learned something new, keep it to yourself. You know, it's not fair to that boater that put in the time and the effort to show you something new, and then you go and just tell the whole world. So that's another part that you want to just be mindful of. What else is there? Gas money. Unless you make a really long run, I always tip $40 to $60. $40 minimum, $50 if we both had a really fun day, $60 if I do pretty good, I'm gonna have some money coming my way. But 40 to 60 bucks is, I think, standard. Anything more than that's over. If you can afford it, great. I mean, operating a bass boat is extremely expensive. So tip your boaters. What else is there? Fishing locations, well, that kind of goes with techniques. Don't share his fishing locations with other people. If somebody asks, be very generic. Oh yeah, we went up Stumpy Creek, or, you know, we went in the back hollow road, you know, but don't be, you know. And a lot of times I don't even understand, I don't even look where we're at. Point, stay off your phone. Pretty simple stuff, guys. Don't be doing anything shady. You know, it is not okay for you to, yeah, if he has you on a spot that you're just pulling in these fish, it's his spot. It is not okay for you to pull out your phone and drop a pin on a map app of where your guys are fishing. It's just not okay. And it's definitely not okay to share that location with anybody else. I mean, this is kind of elementary in my opinion, but I guess some guys just don't know. This is stuff I've heard from the grapevine of co-anglers doing over the years. Guys, pick up after yourselves. You know, there's a lot of co-anglers that are just really messy and leave a big mess behind. Yeah, am I the type of fisherman, I rip a plastic bait off the hook and throw it on the floor? Absolutely. If my boater does that, then I have no problem doing it. I usually try to pick up after myself at the end of the day. But if you see he throws, every time he takes a bait off the hook and he disposes of it properly, be sure to do the same. Obviously, he doesn't like seeing garbage on the floor of his boat, so there's no need for you to rip off a plastic, a worm, you know, cut something off. You know, put everything back. Have a little bag with you. I always carry a little plastic bag. I usually carry my lunch in there. Then I use that same bag for trash. I always keep my own trash bag, and I dispose of my trash properly. Don't ever leave any trash in somebody's boat. I hear that a complaint from a lot of boaters about that. Just pick up after yourselves, guys. Just be normal human beings, and I promise you guys, you'll make a lot of friends. If I can think of any other tips for you guys, I'll let you know. But other than that, I'm gonna be continue driving down to Wylie. I'll see you on the way home. Hopefully I have some good news for you guys. Well, I'm home from Lake Wylie. The last time you guys saw me, I was driving down there. I gave you guys some tips on etiquette. After the tournament, before we even get into the recap, one thing also I thought of on the water, my team partner, the guy I ended up fishing with, he was throwing some top water.
And during the day, he had a pretty big blow up. He actually had several big blow ups that he didn't capitalize on. That's fishing, but one particularly, we come in on this spot and there really wasn't much to throw at, so I kind of was just waiting for him to make the first cast to it, and then change the boat angle, and so we could both fish some stuff. So I was just kind of watching his top water, and he got blown up, and when he set the hook, the braid of his line got wrapped up in his guides. So he was trying to fight it, and he kept looking back at me, worried I was going to throw in on that fish, something I would never ever do. I thought that was pretty elementary, which made me think of another do and don't for this videos. If your boater misses a fish, whether it's on top water or whatever, on a jig, don't throw in there on him. Let him make another cast to it. He ended up missing that fish, and he was so worried that I was going to throw in on it. He was actually, it was making him take longer to, undo his little knot that he made. He gets it together, throws back out there, gives that, makes about 2 or 3 casts to that spot. The fish doesn't come back up, and he's like, hey, throw your bait in there, see if he'll eat your stuff. And I asked him, I said, man, how many co-anglers would have thrown in on that fish? He kind of looked at me, he said 95% of them. And I was shocked. I don't think that's okay whatsoever. You'll make a new friend if you do not do those types of things. So another tip for you guys is don't throw in on a fish that your boater misses. Find your own fish, do your own thing. Now, if he makes a couple casts to her, I've actually had a boater one time, he missed a fish out of a bush, and I would not throw in there. He actually, after he missed it, he never threw back in there and started flipping a dock that was right next to the bush. And I thought, well, maybe he was trying to let that fish settle, so I just kept throwing out the back of the boat, and he turned the boat to where I almost didn't have anything else to fish other than that bush. And I said to him, I was like, hey, sir, are you going to throw back in a fish? He said, you catch him. Well, I flipped in there and it was a 5-pounder. True story. It happened on High Rock Lake a couple years ago. Tournament actually ended up winning, but yeah, don't throw in on your boater. Simple as that. So we're home. It ended up being a great tournament. Ended up caught a lot of fish. Didn't catch any big fish, but I guess I really caught bigger ones than my competition. I ended up finishing first place, and I got lunker. I'm extremely lucky to get this plaque right here because I almost didn't weigh a lunker, a big fish during weigh-in. A 290 on Lake Wylie won lunker, and I'm just surprised because I saw some really nice fish out there on the water. My boater had some really big fish come up and blow up, and he had a couple hooked up and lost them. He caught a couple, and I really thought the big ones were biting. So shocked to get that one. Hell, I'm shocked to get this one because I only had 7 pound. At the end of the day, I really didn't even know if I was going to get a check. I thought, it was possible to maybe squeak out one of the last paying checks. Never in a million years thought I was going to win. But the keys to success, got 2 paychecks as well. Basically, we started in the morning on a shad spawn. He was throwing some top water. So because he was hitting the surface of the water, I was going to throw something underneath. I was throwing, swim jigs, spinnerbait, stuff like that. And then I didn't catch anything. But then he switched up. And I'm not going to say what he was throwing or anything like that, but it wasn't anything I was throwing, but it was subsurfaced. So instead of fishing the same water column he was, I decided to then go to a top water. Well, the only thing I really had tied on to mimic a shad spawn was a buzzbait. I picked it up, and right away I had 3 blow-ups. Got a limit really quick, but they weren't the right size. We moved spots and went to this other shad spawn deal. Fishing around. Well, I ended up picking up my trusty Nico rig and threw it in there. Gave them fish a different look. They'd been feeding on shad. He caught a couple on top water. I couldn't get a bite. Well, then I ended up catching a 290 on a Nico rig. Ran that pattern for a while. And honestly, guys, other than a buzzbait, I really couldn't get bit on it. He was getting some blow-ups on top water. But as far as me, I really couldn't figure out how to get bit. I did catch another one on a Nico rig that helped out, called out another one. And then that bite kind of died, as it normally does. So we just started fishing later in the day, just targeting some shade. I threw a pop bar in a shade pocket, caught like a 2-pound spotted bass that called out my last little one. So at that point I had a pretty good bag. Caught some more fish on Nika rig, started catching a couple on a finesse jig, but they weren't helping me. I think I caught one on a shaky head, again, no help. And then pretty late in the day, I decided to try a mag draft, try to target a bigger fish. And I was able to catch another 2-something largemouth. It was really skinny, but that called out that spotted bass I had to bring me up to a 7-pound limit, which was good enough for first place. Couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a grind, but I probably caught 10 or, I think I caught 10 keepers. I lost 2. And I won it by, not just by a little bit, I won it by a good bit. I had right at 7 pound. I think second place was a heavy 5, and I think third place was a heavy 4, which is just absolutely crazy to me that, I mean, I can't believe it. I don't know what I was expecting to win. I probably figured 8.5 to 9 pound was going to win. Then there'd probably be 8 to 7.5 to an 8, and then probably somewhere low 7s was going to get the last check, in my opinion. Never ever thought that a low 7 was going to win it, and really never thought that a 290 was going to be big fish on the Coangler side. I guess a lot of guys struggled. I don't know how, but it is what it is. I'll take it. I have a huge lead in Angler of the Year points going into the 2-dayer. I shouldn't say a huge lead, but an 11-point lead, which is pretty big because I think we only have 12 co-anglers that even fished 3 of the 4 tournaments to qualify for the 2-day championship. So there's not a whole lot of room to build up a gap in Angler of the Year. Like, you know, I mean, you can only fall so far and you can only get so far ahead. So I feel like an 11-point lead is a pretty big lead. Problem is the 2-dayer is worth double points. So you would think that if there's only going to be 12 co-anglers, 11-point lead is almost insurmountable, but I think I need a top 6 to secure Angler of the Year. So that's the goal. That tournament's in September. It's a long ways away. We got a lot of fishing between now and then. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, comment down below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.